Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MACE session of Cal Assessment Network. So this session will be recorded, as you just heard, and we'll be sharing the materials after the session. We also wanted to let you know that the live transcript feature is enabled, so you can access it from your points. Please keep your microphone muted to avoid interruption, but feel free to raise your hand to ask for clarifications or questions. We always love your input. And now I would like to pass on to Isela to have the land acknowledgement.
Thank you so much, Janara. So my name is Isela. I wanted to say how important it is for us to acknowledge the land that we're occupying, whether you're close to UC Berkeley, around it, or somewhere else completely. Cal Coaching Network recognizes that UC Berkeley sits on the territory of Kuchun, the ancestral and unceded land of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Alameda County. This land was and continues to be of great importance to the Muwekma Ohlone tribe and other familial descendants of the Verona Band. We recognize that every member of the Berkeley community has and continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land since the institution's founding in 1868. Consistent with our values of community, inclusion, and diversity, we have responsibility to acknowledge and make visible the university's relationship to Native peoples. As members of the Berkeley community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we stand, but also we recognize that the Muwekma Ohlone people are alive and flourishing members of the Berkeley and broader Bay Area communities today. And one of the things that we'd like to do is, instead of just reading this land acknowledgement, is really asking folks in the chat if you could put in, I'll send a link to what I just read. Many of you are familiar with this already. There's a lot of resources on this website. And I would also like to invite folks to put in the chat ways that you actively contribute to acknowledging the Native people and the land that you occupy. And so if people can think about different ways and then just put them in the chat, that would be really appreciated. And with that, I'm going to pass the introduction on to Janara.
Thank you. So we're so happy to hear to have you all here today. I'm just gonna briefly introduce myself, and I'll pass it on to Francesca. My name is Janara Nausbaiva Gallegos. I'm the CAN co-chair, and I also work for the math department as the curriculum manager. Francesca?
Welcome, everybody. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Cal Assessment Network. My name is Francesca Rivera. I'm a program specialist in the fall program for freshmen. I also want to acknowledge our other partner, Alfred Alipio Joscon, who is doing technical work for us behind the scenes, and I want to thank him. And I will pass it back to our collaborators from the Cal Coaching Network.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm next to Isela Peña-Reger. I use she, her, ella pronouns. I'm the Cal Coaching Network co-chair. I'm also the assistant director for College of Letters and Science undergraduate advising, and the chair-elect for Alianza, the Chicanx Latinx staff organization. Passing it on to my colleague, Colin.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So glad to be with you all on this beautiful Thursday. I'm Colin Gurka-Jinsei. I am a senior talent strategy partner in the People and Organization Development team in Berkeley People and Culture. And I'm so happy to be with you all. I'm the co-chair of the Cal Coaching Network with the wonderful Isela, and really excited to talk about measuring your coaching effectiveness today. All right, passing it over to Ying.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Ying Kwa. I use she, her pronoun, and I am a People and Organizational Development lead in People and Culture, and also founder and past co-chair of CCN. So happy to be here. Just want to echo what Colin has said, and let's get started with our game plan for today. So here's our flow show. We're gonna do a little bit context setting, just kind of why are we here? Why are we doing the CCN CAN collab? And then we're gonna share a key grounding framework of a Kirkpatrick assessment model. Then we're gonna share 10 coaching strategies to monitor your effectiveness. And then we're also gonna share some examples on some tools that we have used or seen other people use in measuring coaching effectiveness.
So I'm just, I wanted to briefly introduce CAN to, set this context for this collaboration. So CAN, Cal Assessment Network, was started 13 years ago in 2009 by Katie Dustin, who was enthused by the question of assessment. She was navigating her own career through university, and assessment was like a really fascinating angle. So she was joined by many colleagues. A lot of them are here to create cool collaborative projects. So like that's kind of, we're still going in that path. So when Katie was leaving the university last year, she engaged in a very successful succession planning, and I'm kind of referring to the presentation that we had last month with James Kent, Kent Dudek. So she brought on Francesca and I on the board, and we have been highlighting many assessment projects that share different ways in which evaluation and assessment are employed at the university for continuous improvement of campus operations. So I'll hand this over to Isala to introduce CCN.
Thank you so much, Nora. So yeah, the background for Cal Coaching Network, lovingly known as CCN, and also it's just more convenient to shorten it that way. I wanted to let you know that we're a little bit more of a baby staff community of practice, and it was founded in 2019 by Aynette Dischler and Yinghua, who's here. And then the baton was passed over for leadership at the beginning of 2020 to Colin and myself. And then from there, we've just grown the leadership team and the network itself. CCN's mission is growing and nurturing the Berkeley coaching culture and community through knowledge, tools, skills practice, and an equity-oriented mindset. So how do we define coaching? It's a thought-provoking and creative process to maximize potential. So this could be self-coaching, it could be manager to employee, it can be peer-to-peer in teams, and also thinking about coaching services like career or executive coaching. And then what's this coachability thing? So the coachability is the willingness and ability to be present and open to exploration, to examine assumptions, to generate creative solutions, and to take the risk of trying new things. The general ability to be open and receptive to learning at that particular time. And that is from Elena Aguilar from the book Coaching for Equity. So I'm going to pass it back on to Francesca.
Yeah, and Colin, you can just leave the slides up. It's okay that we didn't make this is just a little intro part. And I want to thank Cal Coaching Network, especially for this collaboration, taking the lead on the slides. So I wanted to, first of all, thank everybody for being here and put a little plug in for like, why join staff orgs, community practices, and how do collaborations like this happen? Because this is 2 or more communities meeting, and we're very hopeful that if this is successful, as we think it will be, that more of this can happen on across campus. So how it came to be is that I, like many of you, am a member of several staff organizations and communities of practice on campus. And whenever there's a new staff org newsletter, I sort of sign up because I want to see what my colleagues are doing across campus. And I work in a very tiny unit in a remote building, right, on University Ave that's technically off the main campus. And so one of the ways I stay connected is just knowing what colleagues do across other units, even if it doesn't intersect with mine. So CCN shared their great annual report with all the staff org leaders, and I was reading with interest, not only as a fledgling member of this new community practice CCN, but also thinking about my own personal engagement with coaching. And I kept coming back to, how do I know it's working? Right? And I wondered how many other people thought the same thing as I did. So I asked the CCN chairs if they'd be interested in a conversation with CAN about if there's overlap with what we're doing. And the answer is, of course, there's overlap, because we're all always thinking about how do we know if what we're doing is effective. We're always measuring something. The question is in real time or after the fact. And so the CCN and CAN conversations have been really fruitful and inspiring for like what is each of our community practice we think is interested? How can we leave room for our members to also share? And what information do we have to share? And so that's this joint session. So what we're all about to experience today is an experiment. I hope you're all down with participating in, and I want to thank you. And I want to encourage you to continue to think collaboratively with all of our colleagues and with different orgs across campus. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Ying, who's going to talk us through measuring coaching effectiveness.
Thank you, Francesca. I mean, when we got together, we were like, well, what's the collaboration going to look like? There's coaching, there's assessment. Well, of course, measuring coaching effectiveness, because we know that at UC Berkeley, it's a very dynamic working environment, right? We're often working with people with at different levels of organization and, you know, accomplishing big and groundbreaking and incredible tasks and goals. So how do we know if when we're using coaching or we're being coached, how do we know that we're effective at helping others to maximize their potential for success, and also, you know, being, you know, our own coach and to coach ourselves towards success and to bring out all that potential, right? So today we're going to highlight a few ways to implement some ongoing measurements of your own coaching effectiveness. And passing over to Acela.
Here we are. This is fun. It's like so dynamic. So many people talking. Okay. We want to bring forward the knowledge in the room today. So please be aware, like we acknowledge that all of us have skills, we have knowledge, we have wisdom. So we have 2 questions for you to think about and then write about. We'll give you a few moments to think and write your response in the chat, and I'll be quiet. First, I'm just going to read it. First one is, how do you know if you are effective when you are helping someone else? Awesome. I am going to start talking again. I wanted to give people a little bit of time to just kind of think and be able to write. I'm seeing a theme of asking for feedback, direct feedback. Often we don't know unless we ask, right? We don't know how we're doing. So asking is another theme. If they ask questions that show that they understand and want more information. Warren says, when I see change, that's when you know that you've been effective. Body language, the questions or feedback they give. Again, Isaac also offers change behavior, feedback, and maybe even less questions asked. So that's interesting. Somebody else said maybe they asking more questions, and maybe they're asking less questions, right? When I see them reach the goal that they identified earlier, that aha moment, we have nonverbal cues, verbal and written feedback. I watch for signs of implementation. Also by hearing from them, of course. So again, somebody puts Paula, thank you for saying feedback is important, but seeing if the feedback or the change is actually implemented. So again, focusing on looking at the behavior and at any changes. They meet the goals. Again, somebody else saying the goals that were set earlier on. And then thank you, Shauna. When I observe clear indicators. 2nd, when I get verbal confirmation from them. And 3, when I see them implement suggested tools, strategies, changes. A lot of things around action steps. Oh, notes of thanks and appreciation. That's always so nice to receive, and also like an indicator that you're making an impact, right? The look in their eyes, again, the aha moment when they say thank you, seeing results, tangible results from coaching. I ask if I'm helping directly. So just directly asking, am I helping? When they say, I feel like I can move forward and I'm not trapped, and they get the job. That's really amazing. Yeah, that would be a really great one. Awesome. And the second question, Colin.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit of the flip, and I'm loving the wisdom in the room today. And it's so good to see some folks who I get to see all the time. And welcome to the new folks who are maybe coming to their first CAN session and their first CCN session. This is super, super fun. So the second question, we'll give a little space for thinking and writing and reading and reflecting. If someone is helping you, how do you know they are effective? If someone is helping you, how do you know that they are effective in helping you? Yeah, so think about it for a few moments and drop those ideas in the chat. Wow, I would like to say that the group chat is on fire today, everybody. This is super cool. Harumi shares, I feel supported and know how to move forward and can think and can ask more questions without feeling shut down. Yes, that psychological safety to be able to continue to explore, even if we've already explored. How do we revisit? How do we retool? How do we tweak things? And how comfortable do I feel to come back to these conversations that maybe we've already had conversations about resolution? Yeah, Angela shares, when I feel safe, heard, and or unstuck. Yes, love it. When after discussion, I feel happier. Yes, that shot of serotonin, that adrenaline, that happy feels after getting it out and being cathartic and working with somebody who's helping you, feeling calmer, clearer, ready to take that next move. Yeah, it depends on what they're helping me with. Yeah, exactly. Ken shares, I feel a shift in perspective that helps me move forward. Yes, so change talk, getting outside of our comfort zones and trying new things. Jerisha, good to see you. By delivery and their examples. Hi, Tam, if they influence change in me. Oh, hey, Mariana, long time no see. I feel inspired, motivated, supported, and have a plan for change, growth, and next steps. I'm seeing some of the UC Berkeley coaching models show up in that response right there. Hey, Shauna, good to see you as well. When they lead me to new ideas and perspectives. Janara says, when things appear easier than they were in my head. Yeah, okay. Nancy shares that aha moments. Yes, that's kind of continuing through from our last question to this one. Elizabeth, hi, hello. My perspectives are altered. I feel empowered. We're going to talk about that later today by the tools or ideas that they can give me, and I can move on. Yeah, I love that. Oh, hey, Tammy, they ask a question that leads me to an insight. Yes, using open-ended questions to open up new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, new frames of thought. Yeah, Alfred, when I feel informed and empowered. Information, empowerment. I love that. Oh my gosh, there's so much here, and I can't get to all of them, but I want to encourage all of you to really soak up all of these wonderful reflections like a sponge and hold those with us today, because this is a little bit of our foundation. Now we're going to share in a few moments a model that can ground us. Then we're going to share some strategies that we can monitor. Then we're going to share you some tools. So it's a little bit of a build upon today. And this is a great place to start with all this wisdom in the room. So thank you so much for sharing. All right, Yang.
I'll mute. Okay. So like Colin said, first we want to share kind of a grounding framework of assessment tool. Now, thinking about measuring effectiveness, the Kirkpatrick model is really a globally recognized model of evaluating results. Now, this framework was originally developed to evaluate the effectiveness of training and learning programs. So, those of us in training you probably heard of this model. It assesses both formal and informal training methods and rates them against 4 levels of criteria, which you see on the slide here, which is reaction, learning, behavior, and results. Now, we can also apply this framework to evaluate the effectiveness of our coaching sessions or coaching programs. Now, thinking about all those things in the chat, like how do you know when it's effective, right? When we think of level 1, is that reaction, that immediate reaction, like right after the coaching conversation, they liked the conversation, they felt that it was useful, it was amazing, it was life-changing. Not so well, I felt like that was a waste of time. That's that immediate short-term like reaction to it, right? And then the level 2, some of you said ahas, those light bulbs go off. That's kind of that learning transfer. That's that short-term brief. There may be a new idea that popped up, new perspective, new learning that got transferred through that conversation. That's kind of that short term. And then there's the level 3 here, which is behavior change. Now, behavior change is more of a long-term, more ongoing. Like some of you have said, if you observe a change in what they're doing, or that's it occurred as a result of the coaching conversation or the coaching program, that changed the way they act, they interact, they look at things, they react to things. The behavior change, that kind of is a long-term and ongoing, right, thing. And then level 4 is that result. And because of these behavior change and the learning transfer, there's this ongoing long-term result as kind of a after fact of the coaching program or the coaching conversation. There's measurable impact on performance, right? So there's that kind of a bigger, you're going grander and grander as we get through the levels, and you're getting longer and longer term and looking at things kind of at a ego, 1,000 feet perspective. Now, of course, Kirkpatrick later came up with the level 5, which is return on investment, which can also be applied. How does what's the return on investment by investing on, having these kind of coaching services, coaching conversations, coaching programs, and what is that? How much we spent to pay for the service versus how much money did that make the organization or the organization save based on the result of these conversations programs, right? So when we think of kind of the effectiveness, somebody can have an aha moment in a coaching session that makes a long-term, like life-changing impact on the person being coached. Most of the time, well, that's possible, right? But most of the time, long-term and ongoing changes require ongoing coaching to continuously have that kind of a support and sounding board as the coach experiment and experience that behavior change, and to sustain a measurable impact improvement. As they experience that change, they're going to need support to sustain that, because they're going to run into something that's going to be tempting to revert back to the old way of doing, and have an ongoing coach to continuously be there and be a supportive body. It's going to help with that long term, that level 3 and level 4 behavior change and long-term result. Now, we're going to share a couple of assessment tools in a moment, and they're going to be kind of spread out in different levels. Encourage you to think about, like, as you're thinking about measuring effectiveness, at what level are you measuring? Because when we're clear on what is the intention of our measurement, we're going to be able to design our measurement to get us the result that we're looking for, that result that we're interested to learning about, right? So keep this kind of a grounding framework in mind. Of course, if you're interested in learning more about the Kirkpatrick model, the Google God has everything on the internet, so feel free to do a little bit more learning and digging on your own. But we're gonna kind of go ahead here. Actually, let me see if there's any questions coming in. Nope. All right. Let's go ahead and head on to some strategies for you to consider when you're coaching.
Yeah, Ying, thank you so much for talking to us about the Kirkpatrick model as sort of a grounding framework to think about reaction, learning transfer, behavior change, results, and return on investment, ROI. But before we play around with a few tools and assessments with the Kirkpatrick model in mind, we want to talk about a top 10 list, not the top 10 list, but a top 10 list of ways that you can be more regularly monitoring your effectiveness as a coach by being mindful of how you are creating positive, neutral, or negative impact in relation to the following strategies is a great place to start before going too far down the rabbit hole. So out of the gate, these strategies can expand your skills as an effective coach. And Janara is going to take the first 5 and Isela is going to take the second 5. So I'll pass it over to you, Janara, and thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. So, first one is very important to be specific and clear with expectations. And basically, you have to make sure that everyone that's involved is on the same page about what are their roles and what results they hope to get. So, I mean, it's always, helpful to have to nail down, what is it that we want and where are we going? The second one is follow through and individualized support. So it's very important to note that equity-oriented coaching is based on individualized, customized, and ongoing support. So that's, there is no cookie cutter, approach. Like it, we're all individuals, we're all different. So we have and that's the baseline. The third one is we have to focus on quality relationships and results. So, this is also about a relationship. So, and it's, what our relationships are based on trust, on rapport. So this is one of the, again, like a baselines for, an ongoing, successful relationship and coaching. Also, make sure that you, there are always inevitably, derailers. So be aware of those, be cognizant, and communicate them. So like if you feel like, there is something that can set you back, it's good to have a discussion about pitfalls, derailers, roadblocks. So again, it's good in terms of communication. And the fifth one is understand how core needs drive behavior. Again, very good to be explicit about what are the core needs of everybody who's involved in this relationship. So I think I'm gonna now hand the next strategies to Isela. But I also see a question. Give specific examples of derailers. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there can be, some sort of personal issues. I'm like personal setbacks, personal histories, that I'm thinking, like past trauma or like other concerns. I mean, other things that, you don't even know. I mean, you don't even think forefront. So it's good to actually, procrastination I see. And I'll, thank you for everybody for jumping in to give examples of derailers, but I'm going to hand it to Isela.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from CCN or CAN that can think about specific things? Like Colin will talk about effort exerted later. Oh, DePaula. Okay. Any other specific things? Like if you think about triggers, we're thinking about things that they're all different things. Like somebody is hoarding information. There may be something about somebody's identity that's triggering. It could be something about specific language that's used. And so hopefully that is something that folks can work through with a coach and coachee to set guardrails about talking through those things in sorts of agreements. And then as you go on, you may notice other things that you can come up with.
Can I add one? May I add one more, Isela? That's very common at Berkeley or other big institutions, and that is setting up a no before there could be a yes. If someone comes to you for mentoring advice or like trying to do something new, either for them or like programmatically, one of the more common things is to tell people all the ways it can't happen, as if like you're trying to problem solve, but in the beginning stages, sometimes no's are not helpful at all. And a lot of people, and especially, I'll just use myself as an example, because I've been on this campus as a staff member and as a student and as an instructor. And there's 3 very different kinds of no's that can hit when you want to do something new. And as a staff member, sometimes it can feel like mixed messages. We should grow and we should do new things, but also our job card says X, right? And so sometimes staff are very reluctant to bring up something new because they're afraid the answer is going to be no. So, like a lot of the examples were personal triggers, but sometimes there's also institutional ones too.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for this question, Harumi. It really has been helpful in getting examples. Also thinking about potential projects / task derailers, like talking about various strategies to achieve goals can help with better anticipating and shifting when derailers present. Jerisha says that the feedback given to an employee is discouraging rather than encouraging, then mistakes are made. Awesome. All right, and we're going to go on to the next 5. And so the next 5, notice and nurture team dynamics. So when you're working in a team, it's critical to notice the dynamics. It's really important to zoom out a bit and notice the forest from the trees. In other words, don't look, versus like down on the ground where you can't see through, So looking down, looking at the big picture, take opportunities to recognize friction and conflict and use this as exciting opportunities to build the future differently. Conflict isn't always bad, but we are often told that it is. And so, just taking those opportunities to have more coaching conversations and future forward thinking and building. Engage your sphere in sharing feedback, team, peers, network, stakeholders. So start by being vulnerable yourself, really important, about your own journey, what you are working on, and demonstrate those changes through action by modeling that we are always growing and that feedback helps us get closer to closing the gap between self-awareness and social perception. The next one is noticing language change. So think about this scenario. 1 week might be amazing. Week 2, things might be okay. And then week 3, you might notice things are a bit meh with someone. Then in week 4, you notice that someone is having a really bad time with whatever it is. How do we even notice this? It's often through what someone isn't saying, but many times it's really about how we are talking about things. So don't wait until week 4 when things are terrible to think about what adjustments need to be made. This is a coaching conversation, really important. Language changes are important to notice. Next one is healing and rebuilding. As human beings, we've experienced trauma, maybe some really amazing experiences too. We are in a continuous process of engaging with healing and rebuilding. As soon as we leave something really good, we have a responsibility to continue to build so that the great thing we are working on continues to be great, right? It takes being emotionally ready to talk about pain and suffering so that we can once again help the flower to bloom. So it's a little bit like, but healing and rebuilding is super important. And if we don't do that, sometimes it's another way that we get stuck. Avoidance is something that keeps us from healing and rebuilding. The last one is taking stock of growth moments, proud moments. Finally, slow down the conversations and planning discussions to recognize learning, growth, lessons learned, tiny, medium, huge wins. Really, we want you to take time to celebrate. It's really important. And sometimes that means stepping away for just a few seconds. Sometimes it takes a little bit more than that too. Really like making time to like go to that celebration, go to that ceremony, and make that appointment to the spa. Like, I don't know, just think of different ways that can be really tiny that you can shift and use in a few seconds in a meeting. Make something intentional that's maybe a little bit longer, that's like 10, so small, medium, big. We're thinking of all of the ways. Colin, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Isela and Gennaro. Appreciate those top 10 list of ways to monitor your coaching effectiveness as we navigate our worlds together and thinking about helping people at all kind of directions in our sphere. So we're going to explore 5 examples of measuring coaching effectiveness today. These are in your companion guide. They're bookmarked. You can quickly click to them and play around with them today and after today's session. So first, we're going to be hearing from Ying talking with us about a coaching skills self-assessment that comes from the Berkeley People Management 206 course, Growing as a Coach. If you haven't taken it yet, we'd love to see you there in our fall offering. Then I'm going to be talking about a few coachability self-assessments and an ongoing performance development model to measure impact adapted from the Arbinger Institute called 3A+. So I'm really excited to take our awesome Achieve Together model today and make it in 4K, 8K maybe even. Then we're going to shift back to Ying to learn about the 3-point assessment model for the Berkeley People Management Executive Coaching Program, measuring not only coaching effectiveness, but also behavior and mindset change. So thinking about a long-term 10-month program. Finally, we're going to be closing out this session today learning from Isela about the UC Coro Anti-Racism Practices Framework as our system-wide matrix for reflection, learning, and coaching for championship of anti-racism practices within our workplace. We have more on this topic at the NOW conference on June 9th, but today is a little bit of a teaser as we continue to do more learning, reflection, and coaching using this system-wide model that we have.
Okay, so in the beginning, we had that kind of a reflection question. How do you know when you're effective, right? A self-assessment could be helpful in doing a little bit of guided self-reflection. So in the Berkeley People Management Growing as a Coach course, we offer a space for participants to reflect on their own coaching skills. Now, with some of these guided questions, and then you rate yourself and then you identify maybe areas of strength and areas for development. So here are some of the sample questions that, you know, when you think about how well am I coaching? Do I proactively initiate coaching by asking my direct reports what obstacles or challenges are they facing? Do I ask open-ended questions to facilitate learning process and limit that advice that I give? Do I help employees or other people discover what's at the core of the situation? Do I challenge others to look at things in new perspectives? Do I encourage others to consider multiple course of action and walking through kind of step by step? And and again, limiting that advice giving, but kind of as the support and the guiding sounding board. And do I listen carefully and reiterate what I've heard before forming a point of view or offering an advice? These are just samples of questions that could be used in that kind of a self-reflection and self-assessment. And again, you can see those, see the self-assessment in the companion guide, and you do one for yourself and see how well are you coaching, right? You can also adapt this to ask employees or ask your coachee to rate you on a 1 to 5 scale or other scale that of your liking for each of these statements or other statements that you're interested in learning about. Now, again, this is kind of measuring that in that level 1, maybe a little bit of level 2, but really level 1 on the immediate reaction, right? How do people feel about that conversation? How do they observe you asking questions or listening? You can also take things to a higher level, such as the level, the other levels in the Kirkpatrick model that is revolving around these questions, but used kind of in the form as like a pulse survey, right? To aggregate feedback on coaching culture and coaching skills within the organization. Now, of course, self-assessment is gonna be probably the least accurate compared to if you have obtained feedback from others, right? Because this is only our self perspective. It may not be the same as perception. So of course, encourage you to turn these into a survey or something to ask others.
Thank you so much, Ying. I'm going to be talking about 2 coachability self-assessments, and The S goes over our graphics on the slide. It just ruined my day. Just give me my moment to sulk. All right, here we go. Let's talk about 2 coachability self-assessments. The first is adapted from a leadership coach named Ellen Fay. And this is really foundational in thinking about how coachable am I, the person being coached, a coachee. So foundational to coachability, to be okay with being wrong, to be seeking out feedback, and then to actually go after doing some things that maybe are a little bit different to see some behavior change happen in yourself. To observe, be self-observant, and to be reflective, to be self-aware, and to engage with folks in your self-awareness so you can get a sense of, am I landing or am I a space cadet? So coming back down to earth, here are a few of the questions that live within the Ellen Fay model. And this model, you can rate yourself on a 1 through 5 scale, and I'll talk a little bit about the scoring in a few moments. So first is I recognize that there's value in having a partner that holds a vision for me of my greatest potential and who is working with me to function at the best of my abilities. I know my own answers are within me. That's absolutely critical when we're thinking about coaching relationships, is that the coachee is the one that in the end of the day has the agency and ownership to surface the best ideas possible, but the coach is to be there to help with facilitating that surfacing, that exploration, that planning, the discovery, and the action by supporting them in their growth. One of the other ones here, I believe that through guidance, feedback, and my own sense of agency and action, I can discover those actions. Yes, absolutely. I know that self-discovery can be fun and satisfying, that I'm not languishing in my self-discovery. I am eager to take on the actions necessary to accomplish my dreams and change patterns that do not serve me. And this model is in your companion guide, and you can play around with it as well. And also, just thinking about this scale of the scoring matrix, particularly for this assessment, if you score anywhere from like a 10 to 29, I will say that you are at least minimally resistant to transformation with those currently coaching you. Okay, Ellen said, not coachable. I said, this is adapted from Miss Ellen, I am at least minimally resistant to transformation with those currently coaching me, and that could also include resistance to change that I'm thinking about within myself. So thinking about that self-coaching lens. 30 to 20 or 26 to 30, I'm moderately responsive to transformation through coaching, but maybe a little bit resistant to change. 37 through 43, coaching is a valuable thing to you and you're open and willing to try on new ways of doing things. 44 to 50, coaching is a vital piece of your life. You are doing what it takes to actualize and own up to your full potential through action. You'll notice that Carmen Sakurai's model is a little bit similar, but we always like to provide a lot of different frameworks and models because even if this one's a hairline fracture of a difference between Ellen's, maybe this one lands with you a little bit more, just depending on the language and the vibe and the energy. In Carmen's model, a few of the questions that I want to highlight, I'm willing to try out new ideas, actions, and habits. I'm willing to actually take action versus researching and thinking about taking action. That's my favorite line. How many of us ruminate in thinking about what we could do? So much of our lives is really thinking about the past and rehearsing for the future, but this is really that thin line of the present. What can I be doing actively to actually get some feedback, try on new things, and be in that change kind of environment? And 2 more, I am someone who can appropriately share and modulate the credit for my success with my coaches. So to not be overly gushing to say, you are the one that made this happen for me, but to also give credit where credit is due and helping to facilitate change. And that includes owning your own accomplishments and seeing the beauty and the brilliance in the success that you did. That's a really, really big one. And finally, I have time and willingness to receive feedback about growing in my role and in my career, and will not be in suffering for deep diving into change. Because if we are noticing in our worlds that if we do deep dive into change, and that's going to be traumatic for us, maybe coasting, gliding, keeping business as usual is okay. We want to make sure the conditions for success through transformation are there. And if you've got a lot of stuff going on in your life and going into a deep dive and change is what you really say you want to do, but that's causing you harm, maybe I would rate myself as a little bit like closer to a 1 or a 2 on that one versus I'm good. I can go down the rabbit hole with myself. You can push me. Maybe I would rate myself maybe closer to a 5. So in this scoring, it's a little bit different. If you're like a 0 through 20, you might be resistant to coaching, might not be highly coachable at this time. 21 through 30, you're coachable, And conditions for success and expectations need to be revisited, discussed, and explored. So yeah, you're coachable, but we need to have a little bit of a terms and conditions and rules of engagement conversation in order for us to surface and figure out what's the pathway forward for our coaching relationship. And that could be a new person that's coaching you, and that's going to be your boss that's been coaching you for 20 years. So having those moments like Isela was talking about for rebuilding and healing and revisiting are really important. 31 to 40, you're coachable! Exclamation point. The 41 through 50, you're very coachable. This is where you want to lean into asking your coaches, your manager, those that are supporting you in growth to stretch and challenge you to new levels. Okay? So those are both embedded within your guide. And these are both thinking about how coachable am I? All right.
Colin,
Yes,
I was wondering,
yes.
there is a question that it isn't to do with the assessment models, but do we have a little bit of time now to address it? It's one question.
Yeah, let's go for it. Thank you,
Yeah,
Isela.
I have a question to the group. I'd like to start, this is from Nima. I'd like to start my training towards an International Coaching Federation ICF certification. I've found several external programs, but they're quite costly. Do any of the courses that we offer around coaching qualify for the initial training? This would be different than the required hours after the initial training. And if not, does anyone know of how to make funding requests for external coaching training programs?
Yeah, Ying's got a great response. And Ying, you want to talk a little bit about your response? And Nemo, great to hear from you as well about how you're hoping to explore that certification. There are many in the room who are also in that space. And we actually hope to have a session in late fall about all the different coaching certification opportunities that are here at Berkeley, like the Haas program, and also the ICF programs that are all over the world. So Nima, I saw you go off mute, and Ying too. Who do we want to go with first before we go forward, Ying?
Let's go with Nima.
Awesome, thanks.
Oh, hi, everybody. I just want to say I really appreciate you taking my question. Yeah, it's just something that, over the last month, I've kind of gone back and forth on. And I, am a leadership coach in the College of Engineering. That's one of our titles that we have. We work with teams that for their capstone project. I'd really like to just expand on, my knowledge in this area. And I've heard such great things about the ICF training, but like I said, at 14 grand, it's a bit cost prohibitive for me. So I was just wondering if my question is very clear. Like if our programs that we have here don't cover ICF, if the school has any funding or options for this. Thank you.
The school funding, that's up to the department. So, speak to your supervisor about it. If that's part of your role. Is there any professional development fund that may be available to cover some of the costs? I mean, that's going to be really like department, specific. And so your supervisor will probably be the person to chat about. Now, the coaching programs are costly if you want an ICF on your credential, because their ICF stands for International Coach Federation, and they're international recognized kind of governing body. And also, it's just when you have an ICF certification, that means you went through certain type of rigorous training and hours that you have in your belt. So when you want to have an ICF certification, they're usually about that price, if not more. I went through a training, I think it was about that, if not more. I also know there are also other coach trainings that are less expensive, but they may not be ICF accredited training programs. So you will find out by going to ICF's website, and you can search for the programs that they recognize and can go towards the ICF certification. And there are scholarship programs out there if you qualify, but you have to meet certain eligibility criteria. I shared one link from the Coach Training Institute that I got training from. They have a scholarship program, but I just know that your income is threshold quite low to be eligible. But I'm sure there are others out there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Nima and Ying. I think that, we're going to have a session in the fall, as Colin said, to go more in depth. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I could just very quick, Ying, the scholarship that you put, is that for that specific program, or does that cover, like, is that scholarship?
That's that specific program.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, everybody.
Let's talk offline if you have more questions.
This is really healthy because, when we're thinking about, like, when we're building coaching culture, it's really about the relationships that we have within the context of UC Berkeley. But also we have over 60 people on campus who are in the career services advisor sort of job family, and many are in front-facing coaching roles. So one of the things that we have kind of laid out in our strategic plan for CCN is to do a better job of pulling together that network so that we can do more of that professional development work within our coaches network on campus, which also includes who's going after certifications. How can we support people in finding some cost-effective programs that aren't going to break the bank? Because 14K, breaking the bank for everybody in this room here. The Haas program, it's more than that, and it's not ICF certified, but it's an amazing program. So there's all these different pathways to think about in terms of going after your coaching certification, and we want to continue to create that continued growth of our overall campus population towards supporting them and going after what they're looking for. So Nima, you bring up a really good topic that's on the hearts and minds of many in this space, including myself.
Great,
all right,
thanks.
cool. Yeah. Anything else you want to share, Nima, before we move forward? Anybody else?
No, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like an elephant in the room moment that you brought forward for us, and we really appreciate that, and that gives us a push to have our session on this in the fall. Okay, cool, awesome. Let's talk about the 3A plus performance development model adapted from the Arbinger Institute. So at this point, I also want to just make a very quick programming note that we're coming up on the 11 o'clock hour. And if you have to go to your 11 o'clock and need to take a little bio break or get some coffee, and we see a drop off at 11, we're not going to be offended. We understand that people have many things to do, but we'd love it if you can stay on with us through 11:30. We will be here through 11:30. And this is a buffet, right? You don't have to pick up everything at the buffet, but like me, I'm Mona. So you might be resonating with some elements of these models today that really kind of speak to you, and some others that you're learning about or you're curious about, or others that you're like, that's not for me right now. But with all that to say, this one is my favorite, and I'm biased towards it because I come from organizational performance design, and we have a celebrity in the room, Jan Crosby Taylor, who leads our Achieve Together program. So we want to send some sunshines and sparkles to Jan, and Angela also, Dr. Stopper is the sponsor and kind of lead in that space for helping us with our organizational performance transformation, which is a pretty revolutionary thing for an organization of our age to make such a progressive move forward as it relates to moving beyond compliance with performance, right? We've shifted from I got to do a form and I had a conversation to, oh no, we're talking about this at least 3 times a year. We have agile goals. We have a transparent matrix that has more on the how I work than the what I do. There's all kinds of really progressive pieces of this that we want to unpack and to give you an overlay that can help you with stronger tracking of ongoing performance development, growth, impact, and effort exerted. So that's that piece about procrastination. And spoiler alert, I'm going to be sharing my own filled out form of this model in a few moments. So vulnerability, I can feel myself getting flushed at this moment. So stay with me. It's going to be fun. So we want to make sure to include this coaching for performance measurement tool. The Growing as a Coach elements that we shared earlier has some great coaching for performance types of questions to get you going, and that is linked in your companion guide. So you've got your coaching model, you've got your example questions that you can kind of have in your back pocket for your ongoing performance conversations during your check-ins. But then what, right? We have these wonderful Achieve Together 3 check-ins annually. But is that really when you want to be placing all of your coaching time in a given year? No. Now, it's a huge moment to coach for future performance when you're in your Achieve Together conversations. But I will tell you that a lot of magic happens really in the string of lights between those lampposts, those 3 Achieve Together check-ins, okay? Those check-ins along the way are so important. So check out the 3 A plus performance development model, which sort of makes performance now only about what you do and how you do it. So thinking about the achievement criteria, but it also goes a little bit further to talk about actual performance impact. So one thing I will tell you is that managers and employees both have stake in the game. This Arbinger Institute model was really set up just for employees to fill out and to bring to their managers and to have a conversation about it. We didn't think that goes far enough. So we created an adapted model that you're seeing right now, the employee form, and then we're going to show you the manager form in just a hot second here. But let me take you through the elements of this form, and it's all informal. And I want to be really, really clear that when we're talking about revisiting performance and how things are going, this model that we're using here is to be used for informal purposes and ongoing documentation tracking and to help us with focusing our coaching efforts. So the way that we look at things, we're really always on our ongoing performance development journey. We're always on a PIP, whether we are on one or not. I think I triggered the whole room here. But when we're using that mindset that there's always going to be things that are going to be shifting in our roles, the World Economic Forum came out with a study a few years ago before the pandemic that 50% of our skills and the things that we're doing are going to be changing year over year over year. So there's always things that are trending and emerging, and this helps us to be more on point as the world turns, okay? PFP plus. I love that. Yeah, so the 3+ is really this structured way to be thinking about awareness, knowledge change, behavior change, and organizational results, okay? So when we're thinking about this 3+ model, it sets up that structured way to check in, to revisit goals, key tasks, and again, to informally rate performance on 3 scales, okay? And you'll notice those in the sort of light blue, and that's achievement and success, impact on others, and effort exerted, okay? So this gives you the chance as a coach and mentor to more acutely address challenges and barriers, and to also become a more agile coach because you're more regularly checking in on substance, the below the water iceberg issues, okay? Progress, efforts, and how things are landing, what needs to change to move towards greater success. So you saw the employee version a few moments ago, and this, and you can find this in your companion guide, is the manager version. So on the left side over here, you'll notice on and off target, where managers can indicate to their employee if they are seeing from their level, if they're on track and on top of their goals, tasks, or roles. With achievement and success, if you're putting forward a 3, that means that that person's reaching their goals or are on target for that particular task. 2, goals are on track, but the execution is really not where we want it to be. 1, and that kind of looks like we're struggling and goals are not going to be projected to be on track or completed. With impact on others, we're looking at A, not impacting anybody negatively. I think that's a pretty high bar. B, impacting some negatively or because of deadlines or interactions. And C, negatively impacting all who are in our wake. I've definitely been there before, but we want to sort of be in that B or A level. And then effort exerted, this is the procrastination piece where we can kind of think about what can we do to more acutely and more on point support people in prioritizing, getting things off their plate, getting things on their plate, helping to remove barriers so that we can address things that are behind or procrastination that may be happening, because it may not be on them. It may be that there's things that we haven't surfaced yet that are under the current that are going on that we need to surface so that we can move from, it's not happening, procrastination, your fault, to let's look at this holistically and how can we really diagnose this from a root cause standpoint so that we can figure out if it's time or people or process or systems or tech that are causing maybe the procrastination. So effort exerted, you get a plus or a negative. Plus, applying appropriate amount of effort. Ooh, appropriate amount of effort. Negative, that subtraction side, effort can be increased for greater success. We could probably say that about most things, but just really taking the temperature at the present moment of the check-in, that's what we would be focusing on there. Action plan over here on the right, the manager records their agreed upon action plan after reviewing the employee proposal. So on the employee one, we ask the employees to come forward and say, what do you propose as the plan? Let's talk about it. I want you to come up with some ideas and you to really surface what you want to do moving forward. But then to work together in concert to build alignment is absolutely critical, because we don't want folks going out in left field if you wanted them to go to right field. And to work with them on, let's talk about what it would be to move you to center field to right field. And then employee feedback. The manager records feedback from employees on what the manager can do to further support success, positive impact, and prioritization. So that connects back to these 3 areas that we're assessing, right? So with all that to say, oh my gosh, here's my own example. Ah! And I let Angela know I'm using real life examples because I couldn't come up with like a fake role with fake activities. And I'm getting kind of vulnerable with you, and Angela might say that some of these are lower than they are, maybe higher than they are. And that's one of the great things about this tool, is that we can work towards alignment to say, this is what I'm seeing. What are you seeing? And this is just where things are right now, which might have looked a little bit different than last week and may have looked a little bit different the week before. And that's sort of reflected. And I'm looking over here because I can see my bigger screen over there. So just giving you oh yeah, Alfred, I'm happy to share a real life example. And I'm only going to use one of these examples, and I'm going to use my lowest score. So complete strategic planning ignition guide. I'm working on that with Angela and Pam Rich. And we're on target. We are, but we were off target. And we've revisited the timeline because we want to get it right. We want to talk to the right people. We want to get the process right. So all of those conversations brought us to off target and brought us back on to target. But at the same time, this is connected to some other folks' goals, and I'm partially slowing it down. So with all that to say, I gave myself a 2 in terms of achievement and success. We're on the march. We're on the way. It's sort of successful. We're seeing the progress, but it's behind. And I have a negative impact on others to a certain degree because of the slowing down and the readjustment of the timeline. It's put the timeline a little bit behind on some of the other folks' goals for Achieve Together. So just having those conversations to say, hey, I'm the one causing that impact. That person shouldn't be dinged by that. Here's why we need to slow it down. Let's have that conversation. Are there problems and concerns? We could totally move things up. But if we move things up, some other things need to shift as well. So this allows me to just be a real person to talk about what's really going on versus everything's fine, thanks, bye. And effort exerted, negative, because I could have given more effort to it this week. And I just want to be honest about it. One thing I wrote in my action plan, I'm going to coordinate with stakeholders on the process design by our next one-on-one and finalize our ignition guide content. We're almost there. It's just that we had to slow things down for some reasons that were good reasons. And then I will also share with you that the feedback I got was this sort of moved up from a 1C negative, meaning things were kind of off the rails. And now then we moved to a 1C plus, which was a little bit better. And now we're at a 2B minus. So more effort exerted, wasn't as successful, less effort exerted. We're actually on track because the things that we slowed things down for are now coming to life. So also the feedback I got was that my manager can help with coaching me on some of the outreach that we needed for clarity. And Angela did a great job coaching me on doing that. And we got the answer that we were looking for. Well, we got an answer. So with all that to say, there's my real life example. It's in the toolkit too, so I guess this can be screenshot and shared for eternity. But with all of these examples, with the 3A plus model, like I said, this kind of takes our Achieve Together model, which is great, and takes it to a different level. It takes it and makes it a little bit more 3D, spherical, and makes it a little bit more real life and focus on what's going on right now compared to the week before and the week before that. So with all of this, what do you do with it? So first, what sorts of reactions and learning, behavior changes, or impacts on results are you noticing over time after you start using this model? So yeah, I'm using this thing, but what am I noticing in terms of different reactions? Different learning transfer that wasn't happening before we started using this model. What am I noticing in terms of behavior changes? More pluses in terms of effort exerted, more negatives because of why, what's going on? And what results are you seeing elevate, enhance, come in ahead of time at a higher level of expectation than we thought before? Because we have a different model that we can use for prioritization and noticing how impact is landing. Yeah, thanks, Shauna. Great to see you. Really appreciate your attendance and participation. Second, you may choose then, after your one-on-ones, to request sort of quick surveys from employees. And sometimes, like when Jan and I were back in change management land around Achieve Together, giving presentations to, I think we got in front of 6,000 staff over 100 times, folks would ask us, well, you're asking us to move from 1 to 3. What's the future of performance? The future of performance is actually like already happening and has been for the last 20 years in a lot of different spaces, which looks like daily performance support, weekly check-ins on how things are going. And that could look like asking questions to your folks after your one-on-ones. As your manager or coach, how effective was I in helping you reach your goals and overcome obstacles, right? Because you're there to help them with being enabled and empowered to reach their goals. So how effective were you in helping you to reach your goals and overcoming obstacles? And you can create your own scale, but one that we have here is bad, okay, good, amazing, and life-changing. And you may even follow up to say, what wasn't so great about it? What was great about it? What was life-changing about it? So that you can understand some of those things that were coming up earlier. How do you know if you're effective when you're helping somebody? Right? We want to see those things come through some of those responses. You also might ask something like, how did you feel about our last one-on-one? Which is a little bit more of a feeling and how you doing question, right? And you can use it same scale, a different one that makes sense to you. And you can even do a skip logic to follow up to say, all right, what was so amazing about it? So we can do more of that in the future. And next week it might not be so great. So what changed? What can we notice about that? And then following our last one-on-one, how confident are you in moving forward toward your goals? This one's really, really fun. And our scale here that we might suggest is not so confident, neutral, slightly confident, moderately confident, and empowered. You might also ask this question about goals overall. So sometimes you can have, okay, for all of the goals that you have, for all of the tasks that you have on your plate, overall, how confident? And you might even break it down to say goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, rate your level of confidence so that I can understand how to best support you in building up that confidence. And it might not all be about confidence. It might be stuff that's outside of the control that they got to address, but this is a good access point for that conversation. Last thing here I'll share is that you might also choose to ask for real-time feedback regarding your most recent one-on-one, asking about like more soft skills. So some of the things that Ying was mentioning earlier in the coaching skills assessment, like did you experience my use of the UC Berkeley coaching model to discover, explore, plan, and act for transformation? Did you see that model in play, right? Are you using it? Did I ask you open-ended questions? Did I share feedback with you about what's working well and what can be enhanced? Did I actively listen to your individual concerns and challenges in a way that made you feel understood, seen, and valued? These are high bar, but this is really where we want to be hitting when we're thinking about that equity-oriented pedagogy for coaching. Did I ask for feedback about what I can do to support you in reaching your career and job-related goals? Did my approach to coaching support your future readiness? Ooh, I love that one. Did my support to coaching help your future readiness? What can I do to better support you given your current work landscape? And what am I doing well as your manager and coach? So with this sort of kind of in the middle of our program here, talking about all these models, we gave you a brand new performance development sort of measurement and tracking tool and a way to think about, okay, now I'm using this. How can I get better feedback on what's landing, what's missing, and what I could game change for my upcoming conversations with, let's say 4, 5, 10 employees. That is all going to look different per employee. But wouldn't you rather know than to be guessing? I don't know. I do. Anyway, that's all I'll share here. And I think there was a lot of questions and things that came through, but a lot of love for transparency and example. Cool. Were there any other questions, though, that I might have missed? I think I got it all.
I think you did. Did you see
Awesome.
Alfred's about the not about the metrics? You saw that one?
Oh yeah, it's not about the metrics. It's important. Thing is to have the conversation that things are getting to a better place. Yeah, thank you so much, Alfred. Appreciate that. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Ying to talk about our BPM Executive Coaching Program Assessment Approach.
Thank you, Colin. So Colin and I co-manage the Berkeley People Management Executive Coaching Program. This program is a 10-month long program. So of course we want to know that, hey, it's effective program, right? So as part of the program, we work with this partner vendor, BetterUp, which is a virtual coaching platform that matches coaches with our program participants. And BetterUp do the sort of post-session surveys that Colin just shared in the previous slide. How was this conversation? Was it okay, good, life-changing, amazing? That kind of initial reaction, measuring at that level 1. they also do kind of a, like a baseline survey and then a midpoint survey to kind of see the mindset shift, the thriving shift, outcome result, what shifted with the participants. So we thought, we really are curious on some of the items that you see on the screen. We want to see like, how is the experience through the program help maybe improve, maybe become more self-aware and then become better at it. How are people in those areas, right? So with this idea of getting broader feedback on coaching effectiveness, we built a 3-point assessment model for the executive coaching program. So we launch a pre-program survey where participants fill out before they start the program, and then a midpoint, which we have been kind of experimenting and shifting what's the best midpoint that we want to launch it. And we learn through experience and through feedback from the participants through different cohorts. And we're shifting our midpoint survey to a point where it makes sense, where it's not really like the midpoint in terms of time, but in terms of program elements. So we get that midpoint, and then we get a post-program kind of data after the 9-month, 10-month period. What are some of the changes? Now we're measuring it at level 2 and level 3, right? That's the learning change short term, and then also behavior and mindset change, that's long-term change, because they've just gone through this program for several months, right? So we want to measure that change over time. So this particular question is asked in all 3 surveys, the pre, the mid, the post. How would you rate yourself in the following areas? We want to know specifically, how does the program help people in improving their management skills, or their communication skills, their job performance, their engagement with campus and their work environment? Are they, how's their retention or promotion, staying with the UC or promoted to a different area? Well-being, not only do we care about the professional kind of skills, we also care about how is this program helping with confidence at work, their well-being, their motivation, and their networking, their relationship, right? So we were really intentional in designing, because these were the areas that we're hoping the program is going to help the participants to become better or become, a little bit more self-aware on, so they can build their skills on it. So we created the assessment based on that. So back to, when we say, be clear on your intention on what you're trying to measure, because once you are clear on your intention on what you're trying to measure, do I just care about their reaction? If so, all I need to ask them is, how do you think, right? But if I'm really interested in that level 2, level 3 on what kind of behavior change or what kind of long-term effect did the program have or the coaching have on them, then design the question specific to get you that information. So another example to share, and I'm gonna pause to see if there are any questions. All right, and I'll pass it over to Isela.
All right, thanks for those of you who have stayed. We're at the home stretch here, and this is one of the things where Colin talked about some of his favorite tools. This is one of my favorite tools right now. It's actually in pilot form, and it's really one of my favorite to be like digging into. And Colin mentioned earlier that we're going to be doing this at the NOW conference, so this is a little bit of a sneak peek. And it's not necessarily designed to be used in a coaching framework, but that's what we're doing with it. We're like digging into it, but it is tied to Achieve Together. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background about where this comes from before I dive into all the 10 different points. So this is the last framework I want to share with you today. It came from the 2020-2021 UC Leadership Development CORO program. They developed this anti-racism practices learning and reflection tool, along with a whole report that folks can have probably seen through BSA. It's been circulated a few times over the last year. At UC Berkeley, it's really important to know that it's really not just those who have diversity and inclusion roles or just marginalized folks, folks of color, queer, trans folks to do all the social justice work on campus. This really is a collective effort. And I actually have been asked in other sessions about when we think about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and justice work, like some managers are a little bit, like somebody asked me, they were kind of afraid, like what I've kind of been told by higher up leadership that I should stay away from this because I could get in trouble. And so, you know, it's really interesting, like thinking about like, if people with like the power to do things, if all of us do our piece, like regardless of where it is on the hierarchy, we all have the power to do things, right? And so if we leave that only to marginalized people, then we're putting the burden on folks who are already struggling, you know? So I just wanted to put that framework out there about how we all can do this, and it's a collective effort. It leads to a much healthier, more robust, rich, humane work environment. And that's what we all want, right? And no matter who you are, that's what it'll lead to. So this learning and reflection tool creates a level set for the entire UC system. Again, it's a pilot. The people who created it have come and talked to different groups, and they've talked about how it's really should be piloted. We should dig into it and see how we can improve it. And it's a scaling range that from resists to champions. And so I was going to ask maybe Colin, if you could put the model link into the chat so folks can follow along. Thank you. So I'm going over these five here, and then another 5 in the other document, but I also want you to look at the actual tool so you can see the scale. So by having this framework, you have a map, a matrix, a standard to notice where folks are around you when you look at these anti-racism practices that I'll be talking about. It gives you a chance to lead from wherever you're at, to work with others to build championship practices within yourself, within your small groups of close confidants on campus, within your teams, and within your organizations. And I'll also say, one of the things that we're looking at when we're coupling it with utilizing coaching strategies and other frameworks highlighted today that we've talked about, the Coro framework gives us another layer and level to consider when coaching others to success. So it's not only a self-reflection tool, but these are also things that we're playing around with about using these things to help others self-reflect, right? So that's what coaching is a lot of. And so just a really quick glimpse. So first one is actively embraces, first like kind of criteria, actively embraces and engages in personal and professional development to lead BIPOC supervisees. That's Black, Indigenous, people of color. The next one is promotes inclusion of racially diverse voices and working groups. The next one is cultivates psychological safety for BIPOC staff on their team. And the next one is builds understanding of racial microaggressions and makes moves to eliminate them from the workplace. And actually, in the equity-oriented advising and coaching program, we're actually, my partner and I who are presenting on that microaggressions have actually started to flip on micro-affirmations. So if you haven't looked into micro-affirmations, I really want to encourage you to look into those as a way to go beyond even like bystander intervention when something already happens, but about setting the stage for a culture, for the culture, right? Which leads to some of the other points here. But 5 is recognizes BIPOC staff contributions. So really giving people credit, making sure that folks who are sometimes aren't given credit for things that really are really being recognized in many different ways. And the next one is develops BIPOC staff in ways that acknowledge their unique context. And so all of us have different strengths. So again, when we're talking about equity orientation, we're talking about how everything is individualized, and the same goes for when we're talking about anti-racism tools, right? And it's a very kind of particular lens that we're looking at here, but it's the same idea of being equity oriented and making sure that we're looking at the whole self here. Number 7 incorporates understanding of racism, discrimination, and allyship into leadership, attending our multicultural global staff's learning needs. And then the next one is ensures anti-racist work is equitably distributed. So what I mentioned earlier, right? Like if you are a manager, this is something that you can really help with in goal setting. And if you're an individual contributor, thinking about ways that you can do that, like influencing from wherever you are, right? And so how are we doing our part in influence in ensuring that workload is equitably distributed? Maybe you're advocating for that, maybe you're modeling, maybe you're pointing things out, right? And so there's ways that we can do that. Next one is embraces best practices in hiring and onboarding BIPOC staff. So again, not just for managers, although it may sound easier when it's somebody in a power role, right? And then next, promotes wellness and self-care among BIPOC staff and managers. So that's just a little sneak peek for the UC Coro Anti-Racism Learning and Reflection Tool. I do want to make sure that we highlight that we're going to have the link to the workbook. It's the workbook with these 5 leave behind strategies too, learnings and models to take the journey even further. And so I think that is there. So we have some curated resources for today: the advanced agile, the team's mindset, coaching yourself and your team from uncertainty to action, becoming an agile coach, talent development, so many things. And then year-round coaching resources that we have here, right? Cal Coaching Network website. Please come and check out all the things that we have on there. One-on-one career coaching. That's confidential career support with UC Berkeley staff who are certified coaches. One-on-one coaching for performance. The links are there. And then Berkeley People Management Executive Coaching Program. And that's actually part of the first cohort. Ying and Colin are amazing coordinators of that program and are now in, is it the 4th iteration, I think? Is that right? The 4th? Yeah.
We're in
and
the
the
4th
application
cohort, and we're
cohort.
launching application for 5 and 6 soon.
Awesome. So that application comes out super soon, not just soon. All right. And then we're going to do a follow-up survey, but we wanted to also open it up, right, for more questions, discussions, anything like that.
Yeah, how's that for a fire hose, everybody? We do want to express our deep gratitude in Cal Coaching Network to the Cal Assessment Network. Y'all have been an absolute incredible collaborating partner. It's been so great to be able to co-design with you all and to see the program come to life and to model, cross staff organizational partnerships, which we're not the first, but we're so glad to be able to continue in this innovative and collaborative way. Janara, Francesca, Isela, Ying, it's been an absolute joy. And thank you, Alfred, so much as well for all your support. Do you want to stay behind just for a few moments to see if there's any questions, comments, reactions to any of the elements that we discussed today, and to also let you know that we're always available to continue the conversation. If there's some things you're like, hey, I really want to talk about what it could look like to try out some of these things, and I just want to get some support in how you use the model or how others are using it, don't hesitate to reach out to Isela, myself, or Ying in the Cal Coaching Network, or anybody in the Cal Assessment Network, and thinking about getting support from that lens as consultative support as you are trying out these new tools, assessments, and approaches to maximize your coaching effectiveness.
Lots of accolades there. Thank you. Really valuable session. Wonderful set of resources. Yep, we're leaving them with you so you can dig in whenever you want.
Well, great. Well, we'll follow up with the recording of today's session. We'll also upload it on this Cal Coaching Network YouTube page so it can live in perpetuity, and to also include the companion guide so you can take that with you along your merry way.
And then I think there's a survey too that people that will be coming, so folks can tell us how the session went and how we can improve.
That is not yet done, but it will be soon. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll hang out for a few more moments. Thanks for your feedback. Yeah, Francesca, Zanara.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Cal Coaching Network. And it was not a fire hose. It was a wonderful, ginormo buffet that I felt like I was traveling around the room, seeing all the different options. And I especially appreciate everyone who shared personal examples. I think it helps all of us to know, there are, it's not always about optimal versions of this, and you won't know how it works till you try it. So thanks. If there are questions, feel free to unmute yourselves for those of you sticking around. Otherwise, I think we can stop the recording and